Tomorrow morning at 8:30, the defense gives its closing argument. Then the prosecution gets time for rebuttal. Then the judge gives the jury instructions, and then they get the case. Back with me once again is our panel of legal experts. Let me ask each of you, what do you think the defense has to do in their closing argument, and what do you think the prosecution has to do in its rebuttal tomorrow? Let me start with you, Faith.
The defense is going to say the state has not met their burden of proving this case beyond a reasonable doubt, or proving that this was not self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. On rebuttal, the state is going to get up and argue George Zimmerman is a liar. You can't believe anything he says. This 17-year-old is dead. He needs to be held accountable.
Lisa?
The defense needs to explain the inconsistencies and say anytime somebody tells a story over and over, there are going to be inconsistencies. That's true with the prosecution witnesses. It's true with George Zimmerman. He may be guilty of profiling, of making wrong assumptions, but he's not guilty of murder. For the prosecution, they need to put a theory out there that explains what happened. They could simply say that there were words exchanged, perhaps shoving. Trayvon Martin did punch Zimmerman. He's down. He pulls the gun. Trayvon is screaming for help. Zimmerman is angry, and he shoots the gun.
Marsha?
Yeah, I think that the defense has to, first of all, explain away George Zimmerman's aggressive conduct in following, has to explain that he wasn't following, and that somehow Trayvon got the jump on him, and frame it in their narrative so that Trayvon looks like the aggressor and George Zimmerman looks like the victim throughout, in order to get to the point where he's justifiably shooting at Trayvon. And then in rebuttal, the prosecution is going to have to reframe the argument, and I think at that point put out some kind of a solid theory, not blow by blow, but show how really it was George Zimmerman who was the aggressor, who made all the moves that required ultimately Trayvon to defend himself, and then Zimmerman shot him.
John?
Yeah, I think that what the defense has to do is put aside as much as they can what happened beforehand and deal strictly with the shooting itself, and show that their defense is a plausible self-defense, and because then the prosecution has to refute that. In terms of the rebuttal part, I do think they have to deal with the question that these injuries were not so significant that it justifies pulling out a gun and shooting this young man, and they can do that by showing the injuries and the medical testimony that they have.
Let me go quick to Ken.
The defense has to show that they focus on right the seconds before that shooting, to show that he was in fear for his life and he had to defend himself and fire that gun. On the prosecution side, they have to show macro, the entire stalking, following him, putting him in a corner. Trayvon Martin stands his ground, has to defend himself, and then how the shooting occurs and how that ends up being second-degree murder or manslaughter.
Well, we are certainly going to follow this tomorrow, both the defense and the rebuttal and the judge's instructions to the jury. I want to say thank you to my legal panel, and I want to say thanks to you for watching, and let us be here tomorrow to assess what we see on the closing day of statements. Thanks for watching. I'm Al Sharpton. Hardball starts right now.